All right, let's talk about a word that makes a lot of people, well, nervous. Finance. But forget all the complicated charts and the jargon for a second. We're going to go straight to the source, a foundational lecture from MIT, to really understand what finance is all about. And you'll see, it might just be the key to making better decisions in pretty much every part of your life. Okay, so right off the bat, that is a huge claim, right? The most important subject you'll ever encounter. Really? More important than history or science or art? I mean, for most of us, finance seems kind of dry, or it's just about making a ton of money. So how could it possibly be that important? Well, that's the big mystery we're going to unravel today.
So to explain this, Professor Lowe tells this fantastic story about his son. Apparently his son was a super picky eater, but one day he finally tried ice cream. And his face just went through this whole transformation, from total disgust to curiosity and then to just pure joy. And that's really the perfect way to think about finance. It's not some chore you have to get through. It's like a new flavor, a whole new way of seeing the world that once you get it is actually incredibly powerful and, yeah, even exciting.
At its absolute core, finance is just this. It's a disciplined way of thinking about money, using the logic of math. But hang on, before anyone who gets hives just hearing the word math decides to click away, listen to this. That word, mathematics, is way more flexible than you think. You absolutely do not need to be some kind of rocket scientist to master the ideas that really matter. And this slide just proves it perfectly. I mean, look at these two guys. On one side, you've got James Simons, a literal math genius who used concepts from string theory, I'm not kidding, to build one of the most successful hedge funds ever. On the flip side, you've got Warren Buffett. What does he use? Basic arithmetic, the stuff you learned in high school. That's it. And he became one of the richest people on the planet. So the big takeaway here is that there's no one right way to do the math part. Okay, let's break this down even more. Forget everything else for a second. The entire massive world of finance really just boils down to two things. First, you have to figure out what something is actually worth. That's called valuation. Then, once you know the values, you just pick the option that's worth more. The second part, that's actually the easy bit. The real challenge, the whole game, is getting everyone to agree on what something is worth in the first place.
And that right there is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing to value a car. You can keep the tires, you can test drive it. But how on earth does a market decide what something is worth when it's completely, totally unknown? This is where things get really interesting. So to show how this works in real life, Professor Law does this brilliant little experiment. He walks into his class of MBA students with a sealed, nicely wrapped box. And he just starts an auction. Nobody knows what's inside. You can't shake it, you can't ask questions, all you have is the box. And just like that, the classroom becomes a mini stock market. So the bidding starts $1, then 10. Then it starts to pick up steam. Someone sees potential and jumps in at $30. Then someone else shouts 40. What you're seeing happen right here is something called price discovery. This group of people, just by making their own individual bets, is collectively figuring out what this mystery object is worth. And it finally settles, sold for $45. Think about that. In just a couple of minutes, with basically zero information, a market was formed and a clear price was set. A value was literally created out of thin air, based on nothing more than the collective gut feelings and risk tolerance of everyone in that room. Okay, but here's what you're all wondering, right? Was the market right? Did that winning bidder just drop $45 on, I don't know, an old textbook? Or did they just score big? He opens the box, and inside is a brand new iPod Nano. Retail value, $149. So that student who bid $45? Yeah, they just got a massive deal. We're talking more than a 2/3 discount. So what can we learn from this little auction? A whole lot, actually. We saw price discovery happen live. But here's the crucial part. The price was so much lower than the actual value because of all the uncertainty. That $104 difference wasn't a mistake. It was the market's discount for taking a risk on an unknown. The buyer got rewarded for taking that risk, sure, but the seller also got a third of the item's value without even having to show it. And that gap, that discount for risk, that is one of the most fundamental ideas in all of finance.
All right, so we've got the valuing things part down. Now what about managing them? Well, in the business world, you often see a chart like this one. It just shows how money moves through a company. Investors put cash in, the company invests it, it generates more cash, and so on. Now, I know a chart like this looks pretty corporate.
Kind of dry, right? But the ideas behind it are way more personal than you think. But, and this is the really cool part, watch what happens when we map that exact same boring corporate cycle onto your life. Your student loans, that's your sources of cash. Your college education, that's an investment. Your salary from your job is cash from operations. And saving for the future is reinvestment, while spending money on a vacation is your payout. See? It's not some abstract thing for Wall Street. Finance is literally the blueprint for your life. So if that's the framework for everything, what are the secret ingredients? What are the fundamental forces at play? It all comes down to just two things that make finance totally unique: time and risk. Every single complicated financial product, every investment strategy you've ever heard of, it's all built on these two super simple truths. $1 in your hand today is worth more than $1 someone promises you next year, and $1 you are guaranteed to get is worth a heck of a lot more than $1 you might get. And this, right here, is what brings everything full circle. Those two forces, time and risk, they are the secret code behind every single major decision you will ever make. Picking a career? That's not just about salary. It's a huge calculation of what you're spending on education today versus what you might earn tomorrow. Buying a house? That's a massive trade-off between risk and security. So the final question isn't for me, it's for you. How are you pricing time and risk in your own big decisions?